Howdy! How are you all doing? I'm Laura and I'm the founder of Budding Rose Yoga, and I wanted to jump on today and share a live with you and share some of my tips and tricks of how to cultivate a home practice that is going to be sustainable, that is going to be one that inspires you and one that motivates you. Um, so we're all in a very similar situation, haven't we? In the last couple of months, been forced to um, practice at home. You know, if you're a yoga practitioner, you will be very much aware of this situation that we're now practicing in the confines of our own space. You know, we no longer have access to gyms, to our yoga studios, and it's really forced us to reevaluate, I suppose, our own practice. But in the midst of that, in the midst of sort of trying to navigate our own practice at home, it throws up so many other challenges. It's really, really hard, isn't it, to motivate oneself when we are at home, when we don't have that sense of support or that sense of that purpose that we booked a class and we're on the way to the studio, and you know we've got that sort of commitment, and it's quite a tangible thing, and it makes us much more likely to show up and to go to that practice. So then doing it at home, you know, it's much harder to try and cultivate motivation. So that's what I'm here to talk to you guys about today, you know, about how we can really go about creating a space at home and an environment at home that encourages us and invites us to take practice. Because if I know you, and if you're anything like me, you know, yoga has become such an intrinsic part of my life now. And it's so important that I make sure that it happens in my week in some way, in some shape, and in some form. And so we've had to alter an awful lot of things. Me, myself, you know, I've had to completely adapt. We've all had to completely adapt in these times. So I just wanted to talk to you about how we can make a place at home that is enticing, that makes us want to come back to our mat each and every time. So there's two factors, really. There's two really clear factors, and that is our external environment, you know, where we actually practice, where we put our mat, you know, the space at home, where that might be for you. And the other factor is our internal environment. So those are the two things I want to talk to you guys about today. So our external environment, the most obvious thing, where we actually physically go at home to practice our yoga. And it's really important, in my opinion, to create a space that is really, that's really inviting. Yeah, it needs to will you back. It needs to a place that you want to go to. So creating a space that can be uninterrupted, you know, laying out your mat if possible. Keep your mat out at all the time. Okay, I'm going to talk about if this isn't possible, because this isn't possible for everybody, and I totally get that. But if the chance is there, if the space is there at home for you to do so, if you have a spare room, or if you have, you know, this space in the garage or wherever, you know, try and create a space that you can maintain and keep your mat out all the time. And another nice thing to do is to create an altar, you know, to create a space where you can put some nice candles. If you have, you know, a statue or a Buddha or an elephant, you know, something that you can sort of create as a centerpiece, or even just a vase of flowers can be such a beautiful thing, a really beautiful offering to your space, and allowing it to be this place of inspiration, if you can allow that to be maintained. But I totally get it that not everybody has that privilege, and not everybody has that space at home. I totally understand that. And maybe for you it's a case of like, right, okay, clear out the stuff, you know, between your bed and your wardrobe, maybe at home in your bedroom. Maybe that's where you put your yoga mat, right? And it has to, you know, it has to change every single day. Or maybe you use your landing upstairs, or maybe you practice in your hallway. Or, you know, maybe when the kids have gone to bed, you like, right, close the door and you practice in your living room. I totally get that it's not always possible and feasible to leave your yoga mat out all the time. But you know, if that's the case, then there's other things that you can do to make that really valid. And tell people, you know, tell your family, if you are living with somebody, let them know that this is your time. You know, if you've signed up for something, if you've booked a class online, or if you're going to do a practice on YouTube, you know, tell the people in your house, right, you know, at 7 o'clock tonight, I'm doing yoga, and I'm going to do it in the living room, and you're not able to enter unless absolutely necessary. You know, let people know that this is really important to you, and also by saying it out loud, you know, you're making yourself accountable as well. By telling somebody, it also reaffirms to yourself, right? Okay, I'm going to actually do this. I'm going to actually, you know, make this happen. You're more likely to do that and follow through on that action if you set that goal for yourself by telling somebody. Or maybe you write stuff down. Maybe that's your kind of way of making it tangible. So if you're, you know, if you like to write lists, write it in your list, or if you like to write a journal, write it in your journal, or put it in your diary. If you're really organized, put it in your diary and actually blank off that time for yourself. And then it's there, you know, that impression also is there to kind of keep reminding you, okay, right, okay, that is gonna happen today, and you're gonna keep reminding yourself that that's gonna happen. You're gonna make it a priority for yourself. Staying accountable is really, really important, you know. And then also trying to figure out if you are practicing at home, and if you're not following a class, if you're not booking onto a Zoom class, and you're just maybe you're just rocking up for yourself and just seeing what happens, you know, figuring out when the best time for you to do that is. You know, some people really prefer to practice in the morning. Maybe that's the time that you have more energy and you have more fire and you feel more inspired and you want to move. Then set yourself that goal to practice in the morning. Or if you're an afternoon kind of person, you like to practice in the evening, again, be realistic. You know, it's really important that you're realistic about when you're more likely to do it, rather than setting yourself a really unrealistic goal, or just saying, okay, at some point today I'm going to practice. You know, figure out what kind of yogi are you. Do you like to practice in the morning? You're more likely going to do it in the morning if so, or vice versa, doing it in the evening. Other things that you can create in your external environment that may really benefit you is having a good playlist. Music can be really, really uplifting. So, you know, get onto your favorite playlist, follow your favorite people if you're on Spotify or any other, you know, music provider, but you know, turn up your music really loud. Music for me is such a great source of energy and inspiration. I really find it uplifts me. Or maybe if I'm feeling quite melancholy and quite in, my energy is quite low, or quite introverted, quite creative, you know, then play music that's going to really reflect your mood. And that might also then in turn kind of steer you toward where you need to go in your own physical practice. And it isn't always about yang, fast style practices. And if you aren't being led, if you're not doing a led class, and it's just a case of like, I just want to move, but I don't really know what I want to do, you know, create your space, create your external space that's inviting, your yoga mat, put a candle on, tell somebody, right, I'm doing yoga now, close the door, put whatever music on, and then just get onto your mat. Just that simple action, in my opinion, can be the hardest thing to do. You know, I can say to myself, right, I'm going to practice today, but then I'll spend a good proportion of the time beforehand really procrastinating. Oh, I must tidy up the kitchen, I need to do the washing up, I need to sweep up, and then, you know, I've kind of prolonged that lead up, right? Because I know that when I actually step on my mat, I'm like, whoa, okay, this is where I've needed to be all along. So just that simple act of stepping on your yoga mat, of making all of that happen, can sometimes be the hardest thing. And then the rest, more often than not, will just generally follow, will just generally flow. You know, if you are just going to step on your mat and just see what happens, that can be a really beautiful thing. And not have the structure of you know, following a particular flow, for example. And maybe just come into child's pose. I've done it many times. Just come into child's pose and then just start, you know, I might just start sobbing, just crying, you know, because that's all I need to do is just have that release of energy and that release of emotion. Or maybe you're like, you know, really, really high energy and you want to move through some really high energy practices, and that's okay. So I completely appreciate that we don't always have that luxury of having a space, but there are things that you can do to make it possible, you know. And that kind of leads us on to the next thing that I want to talk about is our internal environment. So there's so many things that we can do, can't we, to make sure that our yoga practice takes some kind of shape and some kind of form. You know, we can do all of those things. We can make it look pretty. We can create a really nice, you know, sacred space with lighting and you know, candles and incense. We can make all that happen, you know, but there are certain things that we can't control. We can't control if somebody knocks on the door. We can't control if the bin men drive by at the same time and there's loads of disruption, right? There are many, many things we just have no control over in our external environment, right? That's just the way it is. But the one thing that we do have control over is our own mindset. Yeah, the one thing that we can control is up here. So even if you're like, yeah, okay, Laura, well, I don't have a room at home. I don't even have a yoga mat. I don't have an account on Spotify. I don't have all of these things, and that's completely fine. But the one thing that we are able to control and manipulate is our own decision process and our own decision making, you know. And by saying, listen, I really need this time. I just need to be, you know, on my yoga mat. I need to have this time. And that's, you know, that's completely okay. And I read a passage just recently that the obstacles in our path is the practice of yoga, right? So let me say that again. You know, the obstacles in our way are the very things that we are presented with in order to learn yoga, right? So we can say, can't we, like a gazillion reasons why, you know, I can't do it. I just can't practice at home. I haven't got the space. I haven't got the time. I haven't got the know-how, blah, blah, blah. You know, there's all these different things that we can convince ourselves. And many of them maybe are really valid and really, you know, very real. And that's, you know, there's no escaping that. But actually, you know, are we able to say, okay, well, I don't have this space, but I could do it here. I don't have an hour, but I'm going to take 10 minutes. I don't have the music, and that's fine. You know, I don't have a yoga mat. I don't need one. What I do need is some time out. What I do need is some time for myself, and just creating that that mindset will make it much more. It's much more doable because you believe it, right? You've got to believe it. You've got to believe it, and you've got to want it. And then that leads us on to the next thing about our mindset, which is, what do you want to achieve? You know, what are you stepping on your mat to achieve? And every time my students come to the start of their practice, I always say to them, you know, what do you need from your practice today? Yeah, what do you need? What's your priority? And so if your priority is to practice crow, then happy days, crack on with it. You know, create that goal and create that mindset that that's what you're going to do for X amount of minutes that you're on your, you know, that you have. Or if it's about just, you know, turning down the volume and just having the shutters down, creating that boundary, creating that bubble of space of security so that you can just be without any expectation, then make that your priority, you know, and get on your yoga mat, lie down. That can be your yoga. It doesn't have to be moving. It doesn't have to be crazy ass positions, right? It can just be silence and mindfulness, you know? So be quite clear about what it is that you want to do. Otherwise, it can just lead you down, you know. So you've created all the things, you've done all the things that you've needed to do to create that space. And then before you realize it, you don't actually know what you want to do. And then that kind of just leaves you feeling bewildered and lost. And then, you know, just feeling dejected that you're, you know, oh, actually, I'm useless. I'm no good at yoga. I'm never going to be good at yoga. Why did I bother? And then do you see how we've all of a sudden, before even going there, we've completely given our own reasons why to come out of it and to give up. So be quite clear about what your goals are. It doesn't have to be physical asana, you know, power. it can just be, right, I just want 10 minutes to be quiet and to be still and to create that space for myself. Make that your intention. And don't be afraid of making that your priority. Don't feel like it's self-indulgent to want to feel peaceful, or to want to feel calm and to want to feel relaxed. Yeah, you totally deserve that. You totally deserve wholeheartedly to want to feel those things. So be clear, what do you want and why? Why do you want to do it? And again, don't be afraid of saying, yeah, I want to do crow because I want to feel that progression. I want to see that progression in my practice. I want to feel strong. I want to feel capable. Or I want to have 10 minutes of quiet and mindfulness of meditation because I want to feel worthy. I want to feel relaxed. Don't be afraid of asking those questions. Other reasons or other ways that we can really begin to create that internal environment that is going to be supportive, because again, that's the only thing that we really, really can control and manipulate. Being accountable for sure, telling people, writing it down so that just you can see it, writing it down so you've said it out loud. But the other thing is community, being a part of something, being a part of a group, being a part of a group of people that are like-minded, that share, similar values and similar similar dreams to you. And I think it's a constant journey, isn't it, that we're constantly evaluating the people that we hang around with, the people that we speak to all the time. And it's a hard one. I think evaluating where your friendships are at can be really difficult. I think we're very good at having that conversation with our life partner, and maybe saying, after 20 years, listen, this isn't working anymore. This isn't working for us. I think we need to go separate ways. We're very good at doing that. But when it comes to friendships, we're not so good at having that, really honest dialogue with our friends and saying, listen, this isn't serving me anymore. But recognizing perhaps which areas of your life are toxic, which areas of your life just aren't uplifting you. When you're around people that lift you up, it's going to be much easier and so much easier to stay on board with your vision, and to stay on board with your intention, and to stay on board with your goal when people are seeing you and lifting you up and supporting you and cheering you on. Maybe they're there, maybe they've done it, maybe they're looking up to you and saying, listen, this is that's where I want to be in 6 months' time. You're far more likely to feel that sense of reassurance that you belong to something, that you're not on your own, that you're not strange for wanting these things, and sharing your experiences with people. So community is such a massive part. We are I'm sure you've heard of that expression. We are spiritual beings having a human experience. So we are physical creatures. We're in this physical world, and we're pack animals. We do better when we're together and when we are a part of a group and a herd and a tribe. So I really invite you, and I really encourage you to be a part, to migrate into a circle of people that are lifting you up. And then you'll find that you begin to lift other people up. You're constantly supporting and cheering on your tribe. It's so important that you surround yourself with like-minded people, so that you can say to them, listen, hey, how did you do that? I saw you, I met you a year ago and you were at that point, and now I see that you're doing such and such. What was your experience? How did you get there? What are your aha moments? And ask people, ask and share your experiences, because we're all in the same boat. We're all doing the same thing, and nobody actually knows what they're doing. We're all just making it up as we go along, right? So it's so important that we're able to reach out and to share our experiences with people. and to really recognize that we're not on our own. And going back to, I suppose, what inspired me to share these tips with you today about home practice is because we have come away, haven't we, from, you know, this sort of herd group scenario of practicing in studio. So maybe that's been your experience. And then all of a sudden, you know, through lockdown, we've been isolated, and we're having to, you know, we're still clinging on to our practice because we know it's vital in our life, but we're having to do it in such different ways. And I completely know that practicing on your own has got such a different vibe. It's got such a different energy. And we don't have, you know, the companionship and the camaraderie of people, you know, in the hallway, in the changing room, you know, that little glancing look when you're, you know, you're practicing over your shoulder and you're like, yeah, okay, we're all in this together. So it's important, therefore, that when we're in these situations, of however long we are in this situation, practicing at home and on our own, that we reach out and that we connect with people. You know, whether that's your teacher or whether that's a yoga buddy, you know, have a yoga buddy that's is your accountability buddy, you know, and say to them, listen, you know, I set myself a goal and I'm really struggling with it, because you know, more often than not, they're going to come back and say, yeah, me too. And you're going to be like, oh, thank goodness, you know, I'm not on my own. It's so important now more than ever that we are connecting with people and communicating and sharing our experiences, because I promise you, you know, somebody's going to be, you know, feeling the same way and seeing the same thing. So yeah, join the community. And at the end, I'm going to share a link. I'll put it on social media as well with this video of how to join my group. I've got a group on a private group on Facebook. It's just growing, but it's going to be powerful. It's going to be strong, and it's going to be so electric. I know it is, because there are already so many incredible people in this community. You know, and it's so important that we come together. And this also is going to make you a bit motivated, you know, to how to stay motivated. You know, use your accountability buddy for sure. And then also through that, you'll be able to you know, to access so many more resources, you know, through that sense of community, through that web of community. You know, someone's going to say to you, hey, listen, I tried this video the other day. It was so good. I learned so much. And you're going to be like, oh my God, send me that video. And then all of a sudden you've got, you know, access to so much more information, to so much more resources. Because I'm the kind of person as well, or I've certainly been there, that, you know, there's such a world of information out there in terms of yoga. Like, you go onto YouTube and it's just like, oh my God, there's so much, right? And so I'm the kind of person where I'm like, oh, I'm just not even going to go there. I don't even go into that macrocosm. I don't even enter it, because I just don't know where to begin. So if you have a, you know, like an experience from one of your friends that says, yeah, listen, try this. This was really good. Then, you know, you're more likely to try. And also, don't be afraid to try something different. And I said this to my students just the other week. You know, don't be afraid to try different styles. Don't be afraid to try different teachers. Don't be afraid to just to mix it up a little bit, you know, to mix it up and to add a little kind of variety to your practice. There's nothing wrong with doing that. And it also just begins to show maybe where we're attached. You know, the kind of the grooves that we're in. And I'm not saying that I want you to come away from what works for you, but, you know, even if it's just like a tutorial, say that you're, you know, last week in my 6-week course, we were talking about arm balances and my experience of, don't worry, I'm not telling you to leave. Don't worry, Jules, I'm not telling you to leave. But, you know, for example, like a tutorial, like if you're trying to nail something, if you're doing it the same way and it's just not working, try a different way, you know, try and mix it up, try somebody else's approach and see if that works for you. Because I've done it, you know, I've spent like years trying to trying with one particular pose, and it's never happened. And then all it took for me to do was just try one random video with a teacher who's in London. I probably will never go to her yoga studio. And she cued, you know, a particular pose in a certain way that I haven't ever tried before, and it worked, you know, and I was able to come into it from a completely different perspective. And that is all it can take sometimes. It's just having a different perspective. So, you know, YouTube, yeah, there's a myriad of stuff out there. I've got a YouTube channel, but there is so much out there that you can learn. You know, don't be afraid to try. Don't be afraid to ask your yoga buddy, like, what have you done? What worked for you? And then obviously you've got your online Zoom classes. And if you're afraid of the technology aspect of it, let me just try and reassure you, you know, try it. It's much, much easier than you think, I promise. And one of the beauties of doing yoga in this way and practicing at home, and I've said it a lot of times and I'll keep saying it, because I think it's something that we're able to take it forward with us whenever this kind of situation may or may not end. But the sense of privacy and autonomy, that when you practice at home, you've got complete ownership of how much you share. So you can turn your camera off and not even divulge that type of information. You can just see the teacher and that's it. They can't even hear you or see you. So you have complete privacy. So, you know, that's one of the beauties, in my opinion, of Zoom. So don't be afraid to try it. And if you are afraid and it's been a barrier for you, or technology has been a bit of a barrier for you, get in touch with me and let me reach out. You know, let me support you through that, because I will do my best to, and see if that can be a bit of a breakthrough for you. And as I said before, you know, practicing yoga at home isn't always about moving and doing the crazy stuff. Right? You know, yoga is so much more than that, right? It is so much more than that. It's just a small, tiny aspect. So even if you dedicate 10 minutes for yourself, you set the scene, you know, you dim the lights, you put your candles on, you tell the people in your home, if you've got distractions, that, you know, this is your time, and then all you do is sit or lie down. You know what? That's amazing. You know, yoga isn't always about moving. And so give yourself permission to do that. Give yourself permission to not feel like you have to, you know, hammer it for an hour and sweat, because that isn't always, you know, what is needed and what is necessary. And the next thing, and the last thing perhaps, is to really give yourself permission to have time off, and set yourself those goals. You know, if you used to practice a lot, you used to practice quite often in the week, and you used to go to a yoga studio or a yoga class, and now you're doing it at home, create boundaries. Or if you didn't and you want to bring it into your life, create boundaries, you know, whether that's once a week or 5 times a week, you know, whatever it is, try and create boundaries around that as well, and say, right, I'm going to have these days off. I'm going to have Saturday and Sunday off. I'm going to have Tuesday and Saturday off. If you practice every day, it's really important that you rest your body. It's really important that you do that. And yeah, give yourself permission to have time off, right? And then, you know, coming back to making yourself accountable to it. If you can see, right, okay, I've dedicated that Saturday is going to be my complete non-yoga day, then you're not going to give yourself a hard time on that day if you haven't done any yoga. You know, we can give ourselves an awful lot of, there can be an awful lot of blame and guilt around, you know, practicing at home. Oh man, and like, you know, I'm so guilty of it. I didn't do it today. Give yourself a hard time. I'm going to do it tomorrow. Tomorrow comes and it never happens. And then the following day and the following day. And then all you've done is spend 5 days out of your week giving yourself an enormously great, you know, hard time, that you didn't practice any yoga. And then you're probably never going to do it, you know, for the remaining of that week. And all you've done is give yourself a hard time. But you're probably only going to practice once a week anyway. So you just spent an awful lot of your energy, you know, being really negative and creating this negative dialogue with yourself. So be realistic. You know, as I said to you, be realistic about what you want to do, why you want to do it, and when you're more likely to do it. And you're more likely, therefore, to follow through with that action. And rather than saying, okay, I'm going to do yoga 6 times a week, I'm going to do yoga every day, you know, and then you just probably don't. And you probably do it maybe once every, you know, in 2 weeks, and then you've just given yourself an inordinately hard time for not doing it every day. And it's just so counterintuitive, so counterproductive as well. So be honest with yourself and say, right, I'm probably only going to do it once this week, and that's probably only going to look like a 10-minute block on a Friday morning. That's totally amazing. You know, do that and create that space that's really, really wholesome. 10 minutes of wholesome, whatever it is that you need, lying on your back, lying in child's pose, moving through a few salutations, or just sitting and listening to the birds, right? Rather than giving yourself a hard time that for 7 days of the week you didn't do any yoga, right? Try that. rather than set yourself up to fail. It's really, really, really important. Yeah, it really is. It makes such a difference. And then for those times that you've given yourself permission to not practice yoga, you can practice in so many other ways, through mindfulness, you know, through loving kindness. You know, when you, I don't know, like if you get up in the morning and you get yourself a cup of tea, go and sit outside and listen to the birds. You know, go and feed the birds. One of the best things to do in life. Go and feed the birds and watch them. You know, or listen to your friend if they're having a hard time, and really listen to them. You know, all these are the tiny, tiny little things that we can do in our week that can make us feel wholesome. And then the practice, the physical side, is like an extra sweet little bonus. Yeah. So be kind on yourself. Be kind to yourself. Set yourself realistic goals. You know, ask yourself what it is that you need and why it is that you need it. And then you're going to be more clear and more definitive about that end result, and then that end result is going to be much more likely to happen and occur. Yeah, rather than you setting yourself all these unrealistic goals every single day and just giving yourself an incredibly hard time. It's just really not worth it. So yeah, my little tips, I hope it's been useful. But I would love you to join, so I'm gonna share the link of my my online community, yoga, Budding Rose Yoga community on Facebook. Join it, sign up for it. I'm going to be releasing a load of free content soon, and the next thing I'm going to do is record an online class for you guys to enjoy. So keep watching. I'll put some details up really soon of how you can access that. It'll be a private link that you can watch on YouTube. I'd love to hear your feedback. I'd love to hear your views and your comments. Thank you so much if you've been joining me live. I really appreciate your company and your input. Yay. And lots of love. Yeah, big hearts. And I'll see you really soon. Ciao.